It's interesting that you raise the issue of the evolution or maybe design of the appendix that having happened a number of times. Sometimes we hear from biologists or those more in the atheistic side just can dispose of everything you're saying with a flipped comment. I believe Steven Pinker, maybe he's here. Oh, hi, Steve. So, well, since we don't need an appendix, why, if there's a God, did he design one for human beings? End of argument. Do you have anything to say about it?
Well, I don't really know what the appendix does, but it is in these different places, and it doesn't seem to me it could have arisen by accident. You know, you hear biologists talk about organisms related by families of genes, and they certainly are. But what you don't hear is that if you do that genetic analysis using different families of genes, you get different connections. And you know, it's a mystery, I think, how the designer put things together. There's a couple of good chapters in Stephen Meyer's book, Darwin's Doubt, that are really eye-openers on that.
Do you think Darwinism should be extracted from high school teaching?
I think that high schools should tell it like it is, which is some believe this and some believe that. You know, it's gotten to the point where, you know, I think Richard Dawkins says anybody who doesn't believe in Darwinism is either ignorant, stupid, or insane. You know, there is that kind of mentality out there. I think just the arguments, I think Darwinism makes sense, but I think you get there in steps. And why not say that some people believe that these things were caused by design? People have tried to do that. School boards have tried to do that, have lost in court. I think that would be a great first step just to get to presenting the other side of the argument.
Well, my understanding is that they wanted to completely delete in Kansas, for example. They didn't want it to be mentioned in the textbooks. That's quite different from showing various sides.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a great case, and I think the legal lawyering in that was a disaster, but yeah. I think it's actually, there was Kansas, then there was the Dover School District case, I think, on the East Coast.
Yes. To me, this list of problems seems more like a list of open scientific problems rather than evidence for God. So similar as, you know, back in the day, lightning seemed like a heavenly phenomenon. Now we understand what it is. Same with all these questions. I feel like, you know, 100 years from now they will be well understood within science. So yeah, so like how would you?
Sure, that's a good comment. You know, you can believe that the gaps are going to be filled in by science. Certainly, a lot of people do. Or you can believe that the gaps are evidence of the wonder of God. I find it hard to believe that science is going to explain how information arises by accident. That's, of all these things, I don't see how you get there mathematically. Again, I'm a math nerd. And, you know, so I think you can believe that, but that's a belief. And there's no way now to think of how information could possibly arise by accident. So.
I just want to comment. You know, there was a time when science was separate. Right. Mathematics hadn't been used scientifically, and the planetary orbits were guided by the hand of God. Right. And then Kepler comes along, and Kepler's law, we can now calculate what planetary orbits are. And so the boundary of wonder shifts. Yes. You know, and there's a question of, you know, what do you call science and what do you call something else? And so it seems to me one of the interesting things about this discussion is there's two uses of wonder. There's wonder in the sense of amazement, and there's wonder in the sense of pondering. And so it's the pondering that kind of moves the argument along. I guess that's prompted by the wonder of the amazement sense of the term, where you just look and you go, oh my God, how does that happen? You know, it's very, I guess what I'm saying is I don't see this as really very separate from human. You know, this is a very human, I'm not expressing myself, very, very, very human human activity of wonder.
It's, I think these 7 areas show that possibly there could be something more. You could think that science will fill them in. Certainly that has been the history, you know, and there's a famous German martyr who said, you know, you can't use science, you can't use God to fill in the gaps, because then as science progresses, God has to keep retreating. But I don't think where information comes from is a gap, but certainly you could think of it that way, I suppose.
So, I mean, going back to the planetary orbits, I mean, if we didn't understand gravity and we didn't have the right, you know, like basis set of, you know, equations to, you can imagine counting up all the possible orbits and being like, it's impossible that our orbits are nearly circular because there's all these other shapes in this space of, you know, three-dimensional functions. So, I mean, to me, it seems like information is almost the problem of not knowing the correct basis set from which to, you know, if do you see what I'm saying? Like, counting is difficult if you don't know enough about what you're counting.
Well, we're still learning a lot. I think that my count number 6, certainly on the Earth is special, is mathematically and scientifically the weakest count, because how planets form is still being learned. But I think the biological stuff, the mathematical stuff there, that's just amazing. I mean, you just can't. There's a reason why when you're trying to write something, you don't take letters and scramble them up, okay, and see if it came good. It's not just that it would be slow, it's that you know in the history of your life it never worked that way.
Yes.
So what do you think of the work of Francis Collins? He's sort of like the head of the Genome Project, and he has kind of this idea of biologos, and he's also a kind of a man of faith, but he kind of, being the head of the Genome Project, he's completely in line with the kind of the Darwinian kind of view of origin of life.
Yeah, I mean, I've read his book, and I didn't get all the way through it, but I found it puzzling. He is a man of faith, but he doesn't see the wonder in DNA. I do. It's an amazing molecule. The letters of DNA are impossibly unlikely to form by chance. I mean, to get a batch of those, I read, is to form by accident is like 1 in 10 to the 109. Okay, so and the way it's structured with the strong outer boundary and the letters on the inside, the way the technology unwraps it, and so many things about it. I see wonder. But you know, Einstein said there's only 2 ways to live your life. One is as if nothing is a miracle, and one is as if everything is a miracle. So that's the choice.
Good time for one.
2 more. Yeah.
I was wondering if you ever thought about applying a mathematical case for the computational power God or super intellect would need in order to create our universe, or for that matter, a multiverse, infinite amount of universes. And I think that maybe it's more probable that an I evolved than a human than it is that God created an infinite amount of universes.
Well, yeah. You're getting into questions, philosophical questions that I can't approach mathematically, but it's a good question.
One more, yes, in back.
Of all the thousands of religions that have existed in the world, how did you land on a specific, the Abrahamic God as the truth?
Well, I was raised a Congregationalist, and when my wife decided we had to get my son baptized, we thought we'd check out all the churches, and first one we went to was an Episcopal church, and we liked it, so we stayed. But I find the Episcopal church works good with me. It allows for reason and open thought and analysis of things, which obviously I like. And I think, you know, the first sentence of the Bible, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Well, I've given you possibly some scientific evidence for that. At some level, though, these questions cross over, as Peter said, into just questions of belief and faith. I've done a lot of research on the authenticity of the Gospels. So yes, I believe in the resurrection. You can call me crazy if you want, but I definitely believe it was a historical fact. And that's kind of the road I've taken, if that's at all helpful.
Okay, so we have a reception. We can continue the discussion with Doug more informally. The reception is just down the hall in the...
Can I mention one thing?
Oh, yeah.
If anybody here, I could use some help promoting my book. If anybody possibly would be so inclined and as a member of the MIT faculty would be open to that possibility, I would love to give you a copy. So, thank you.
Okay, let's thank Doug.